Today on CityCast Philly, when it gets cold outside, sometimes I just want to get cozy and watch a movie. But what are some of the best films that feature our great city? It's Thursday, January 5th, 2023. I'm Trenae Nuri, and this is CityCast Philly. Andrew Greenblatt, you're the CEO and Executive Director of the Philadelphia Film Society, and y'all host the annual Philadelphia Film Festival every year. I'm guessing you like movies, right?
I do. I love movies. I watch somewhere around 400 a year, which is only half of what my artistic director watches, so he gets the real credit. But I'll take the one a day average and run with it.
So, Andrew, we wanted to talk to you about movies that were either filmed in Philly or take place in the city, because there are a lot of good ones, actually. And some people, may be surprised. I feel like, though, we have to start the conversation at the most obvious one, Rocky. What's your opinion on this movie?
I'm pretty sure that they passed a law about 30 years ago that you're not allowed to say anything bad about Rocky. At least the original one.
Right.
And some of the sequels, in my opinion, there's like 4 Rockies and then it skips to Rocky Balboa and we don't talk about anything in the center. But I love Rocky. I love Rocky for, everything it is. It's, it's a quintessential underdog story. It's one of the most successful independent films of all time. It is a love letter to Philadelphia, and it embodies the Philadelphia spirit. So there's really, nothing not to love. And it's a sports film, and God knows Philly loves its sports and its sports films. So Rocky is fantastic.
I was just going to say, why do you think Philadelphians are so attached to this particular storyline?
I think inherently people relate to being underdogs, right? And they relate to wanting to achieve beyond your means, beyond what you imagine could happen. I think that's what Rocky is all about. And it's kind of what the city's all about. I mean, even when the Eagles won a Super Bowl, right, they did it as the underdogs that no one believed in. When the Phillies won a World Series back in 2008, they were not the favorite team. They were underdogs. They had to fight through it. So I think that's inherent to our nature, especially in sports.
And I love the Rocky series, and I also love how the team or the creators also shifted and gave us a new character in the movie Creed. And, I love that series as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think Ryan Coogler did such an incredible job with Creed. And, you read about the backstory where, Stallone was done with Rocky. Rocky Balboa felt like the perfect nightcap for him. It was a proper way to end the character. And Ryan was coming off of Fruitvale Station, which was that huge Sundance hit. And the only thing he wanted to do was make Creed. And he had to pitch and beg and convince Stallone. And thank God he was, really successful at it, because we got another quintessential Philadelphia sports film. I'm really excited for the third one coming up next year.
No, me too. Okay, what's another movie set in Philly that you love?
So, there's so many set in Philly. I tend, to gravitate towards the ones that really show Philly for Philly. Like, there's a ton of things that have shot here that, Philly stands in for New York, Philly stands in for somewhere else. But the ones that really embrace the city are the ones that I like the most. So, and sticking with sports for a minute, right? Like something like Silver Linings Playbook, which is so Philly,
right.
And it gets it right. Or even most recently, Hustle, which is, again, I feel like
the Adam Sandler movie, right?
That's right. Yeah. Every decade we get at least one new Philly sports film that gets to punch that ticket to the Pantheon. And Hustle is this one for this decade so far. Silver Linings and Creed were last decade, but they all embrace the city as well as what they do, which is tell an incredible story that is engaging and sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry, but it's in all of them. Silver Linings, Hustle, Creed. You get that feeling that they know Philly, they're part of Philly, and that's, I think, why we respond to those films as well.
Another film that I like, Pride, which was about the youth swim team from a Philadelphia rec center, and it starred Terrence oh my God.
Howard.
Yes, and Bernie Mac. And it was based on a true story about this youth swimming team from Philly that like crushed a swim team from the main line. And, they faced a lot of racial injustice. It's not like a typical sports movie, but it's definitely Philly based. And I think it, kind of goes to some of the similar themes that you just mentioned.
It does. It does. The reason I didn't talk about it is it didn't shoot here.
I
So
see.
it does. It is a Philly story through and through, right? But it didn't actually shoot in the city. I would say there's a film called The Nomads, which is, about a North Philly rugby team that came out, I think, 3-4 years ago. And that's shot here, and it's about a Philly tie. Or Concrete Cowboys, which is not sports for a
Yes.
second,
Yes.
but it's about the Strawberry Mansion Riders and all up in North Philly and the stables, and that's what an incredible part of our culture that most people don't know about. And then to see a movie like Concrete Cowboys come out about it, and then premiere in Toronto and sell to Netflix. I mean, that's pretty spectacular.
There's a horse in your house.
Oh, that's you right here.
I ain't staying here.
All right. So once you step out, that door stays locked till morning.
We have a really, really strong history of independent films that have shot here, noteworthy ones with incredible actors who come to town, sometimes under the radar, sometimes before they pop. There's a film called Night Catches Us that...
Yeah, I've
Do
seen
you
that.
know that? Yeah.
I actually saw, I think I saw that at the film festival.
We did. We had it. We had Kerry Washington come in with it.
Yeah, I think I was there.
Yeah. Oh, it was such a fun night. I think it was our closing night that year, and it was
that the
it was a
Prince
blast.
Theater?
It was at the Prince,
Mhm.
and we had Tanya Hamilton, the director, and Kerry was there. And I remember asking, we were standing on the side, ready to go up for the Q&A, and the credits were rolling. And I asked them, do you guys want to cut the music and start, or do you want to let it run all the way? And I think it was Kerry who said, "Isn't it a crime to cut off the roots in Philadelphia?" And I said, "You're right. You're right. We're going to let it run."
Andrew, can you just tell our audience what that film's about if they're not familiar with it?
I think it's like late 70s, and it deals with the Black Panther movement and a former Panther that's coming back to Philadelphia, and he's been away, and he's not sure how things are going to play out and how the culture is at that time. Anthony Mackie plays the former Panther who returns. Kerry Washington plays the wife of a Panther that's been killed. Tariq Trotter, Black Thought, is in the movie as well. It's a crazy great cast, and it was a great movie. We were thrilled to have that Philadelphia premiere.
I feel like in this conversation, we can't forget about director M. Night Shyamalan. He grew up in the burbs of Philly and sets many of his movies in and around the city. For example, The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable. Do you have a favorite of his?
I do. My favorite is Unbreakable. I remember seeing Unbreakable right when it came out, and it was the movie that followed up The Sixth Sense. So that was this huge breakout, and the expectations couldn't have been higher. And he really made the first comic book movie. If you just think about how far ahead of time he was, this is before the Marvelization of the movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he made this incredible story, like this origin story. I mean, it might be one of Bruce Willis's finest performances. It's just a spectacular film. I remember just being blown away by it.
Why are you looking at me like that? Your train derailed. Some kind of malfunction. They only found 2 people alive so far. You and this man. His skull was cracked open and most of his left side was crushed. And to answer your question, there are 2 reasons why I'm looking at you like this. One, because it seems in a few minutes that you will officially be the only survivor of this train wreck. And 2, you didn't break one bone. You don't have a scratch on you.
Andrew, before we let you go, what do you think is the most underrated film set in Philadelphia?
Wow. Oh, underrated film set in Philadelphia. Films that shot Philadelphia for not exactly Philadelphia. I love 12 Monkeys. It's like a personal favorite. It's a crazy time travel, all of that fun stuff.
Can you actually explain that for me? I'm not familiar.
12 Monkeys, oh my goodness. 12 Monkeys is a film by Terry Gilliam, and it's about a man, Bruce Willis, who shot so many films in Philadelphia. For the record, he might be,
Right.
yeah, he might have done the most out of anybody.
That's
But
funny.
he says he's from the future where there's a virus, a deadly virus that destroyed the world, and he came back in time to try to stop it before it spreads. And people have to decide whether they believe him or not. And it's him, and it's Madeline Stowe, and it's Brad Pitt, and it's fantastic. Highly, highly recommended. And I couldn't not mention Trading Places, right? I mean, it's one of the most brilliant comedies ever. It's so smart, and it did shoot Philadelphia back before anyone was shooting Philadelphia. And of course, I mean, you can't talk about Philadelphia without talking about Philadelphia, right? Tom Hanks, Denzel Washington,
Yep.
the movie that really put Philadelphia on the filmmaking map.
All right, explain this to me like I'm a 2-year-old, okay? Because there's an element to this thing I just cannot get through my thick head. Didn't you have an obligation to tell your employer you had this dreaded, deadly, infectious disease?
That's not the point. From the day they hired me to the day I was fired, I served my clients consistently, thoroughly, with absolute excellence. If they hadn't fired me, that's what I'd be doing today.
And it was that film, I think that was the first film to go through the newly formed Greater Philadelphia Film Office. And then from there, we just get all of those great posters that you see walking between Terminal A and Terminal B in the airport. That's where it starts, really. Even though Rocky came before it, that's where the film office came in and where the run really began.
Andrew Greenblatt, CEO and Executive Director of the Philadelphia Film Society. Thank you so much for chatting with me about all these movies. And I definitely have to check out 12 Monkeys. I feel like now I have so many new things to check out. Check out the Philadelphia Film Society's latest film screenings at filmadelphia.org. We'll have links in our show notes. And here's what else Philly's talking about. In a surprise vote this week, Pennsylvania House Democrats and a few Republicans chose State Representative Mark Rozzi of Berks County to be the chamber's next speaker. Now that Rozzi can moderate floor debates, call up bills for votes, and name the committee chairs, he's decided to become independent and no longer caucus with the Democrats or Republicans. I also read in the Inquirer this week that there's going to be more than 60 new restaurants set to open in the city this year. They include establishments that are high-end, BYOBs, 2 bars, a bacon food truck, and a spot with robots. Also, don't forget to put your reservations in now for Center City's Restaurant Week. You can get lunch and dinner deals from January 15th through January 28th. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you know someone who loves movies, share today's episode with them and subscribe to the show. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter too. It's called Hey Philly. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye. I almost said December.